All right, so are you ready for a deep dive?
Always ready.
Okay, good, because this one's pretty cool.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's Monkey Man.
Oh, yeah, Dev Patel's new movie, right?
Yes, exactly. And we've got a full review to dig into.
Awesome.
This one looks intense.
Intense how? Like action-packed.
Oh, definitely. It's got that whole revenge vibe.
Classic.
But it's also set in modern-day India.
Interesting. So there's probably a clash of, like, old and new.
Right, like traditional values versus, like, corporate greed.
Sounds like there's a lot more to this than just explosions and car chases.
Yeah, and the review really goes deep.
Deep into what?
Well, like Patel's directing style, the cinematography, even the soundtrack.
So it's not just about whether the movie's good or bad. It's like you get a behind-the-scenes look at how it all came together.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. We get to explore how Patel went from Slumdog Millionaire to this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, he's not just starring in this, he directed it too.
Triple threat, right. Writing, directing, acting.
And from what I'm reading, he's playing this character called the Kid.
I wonder if that's like a symbolic thing.
Maybe, right? It's interesting, though, the review says Patel really nails this blend of vulnerability and ferocity.
Makes sense. A guy seeking revenge probably has a lot of anger, but also pain, you know?
Exactly. Plus, you've got Sharlto Copley in the mix.
Oh, wow. And Sobhita Dhulipala, too.
Yeah. What a cast, right?
Yeah, they're both such strong actors. I'm curious how their characters fit in.
You too. The review mentions they add layers to the story.
Okay, but does it say anything about their characters' depth?
Well, it does suggest there are some missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities, how?
Like maybe some of those supporting roles could have been fleshed out more.
That's too bad. I always love seeing those actors get a chance to really shine.
Me too. But hey, at least visually the film seems incredible.
What did the review say?
They called it a visual feast, especially the way they show those modern cityscapes against more traditional settings.
Oh, I bet that's stunning to see on screen.
Yeah, and it ties directly into those themes, modernity versus tradition.
It's like that visual contrast actually reinforces what the movie's trying to say.
Right. And then there's the music.
Oh, yeah. How's the soundtrack?
Apparently it blends traditional Indian music with more modern elements.
Oh, that's cool. Like a fusion of styles to match the fusion of cultures in the film?
Makes you wonder if that reflects the main character's inner struggle too, right? Like caught between two worlds.
Totally. And the review highlights this idea by talking about the sound design. Apparently the action sequences have this really impactful sound.
Ooh, intense.
But there's also a critique that sometimes the sound effects overshadow the dialogue.
That's always frustrating. Like, I get that they want to create this immersive experience, but come on, man.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too distracting. I mean, the story's got to come through, right?
Well, the good news is the pacing sounds perfect.
How so?
The review describes it as brisk, which, for an action movie, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, keeps you on the edge of your seat. As long as it's not like a Michael Bay film where everything's just constant chaos.
No. It sounds like Patel actually balances the action with some quieter moments that let those characters breathe a little.
That's good to hear. Did the review say anything about the editing? Sometimes, if the pace is too fast, the transitions can feel jarring.
You know what? You're right. It does mention that some transitions feel a bit abrupt, like maybe sacrificing smoothness for speed.
So maybe a slight misstep there.
Maybe, but at least the action itself seems really well done.
Did they go all out with special effects, or did they try to keep things more grounded?
Well, they apparently use a lot of practical effects, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, me too. Practical effects just feel more real, more visceral, like you're actually there in the action.
And the review even mentions how the production design really adds to that sense of realism.
How so?
It talks about how they vividly portray the socioeconomic differences in the setting, not shying away from those contrasts.
Okay, so that's cool. It's like they're using the visuals to make a statement, not just for spectacle.
Exactly. Now, I'm sure there's some CGI in there, too. It is an action movie, after all.
Right. Did they overdo it?
It doesn't sound like it. The review suggests they use CGI sparingly, mostly to enhance the practical stuff, not to replace it.
That's a good sign. Too much CGI can take you out of the experience.
Totally. For a directorial debut, I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with Patel.
Yeah, I mean, he's tackling a lot here, acting, directing, and the review even mentions he co-wrote it.
Right. And from what I'm reading, he's really pulling it off.
The review seems to think so. It talks about how he brings this unique cultural perspective to the film and how you can really feel his personal touch on it.
Yeah, it's like he's not just copying what's been done before. He's putting his own spin on the genre.
And it sounds like he's not afraid to delve into some deeper themes too, like vengeance, corruption, the whole search for identity thing.
It's like he's using the action as a backdrop to explore these bigger ideas, which is pretty cool.
It definitely elevates it beyond just a typical popcorn flick.
Yeah, it makes you think, right? It makes you want to see it and really unpack all those layers.
I'm definitely intrigued.
Me too. It sounds like Patel's making a statement with this one, both as a director and as an artist.
It's always exciting to see someone pushing boundaries and trying new things, especially someone who's already achieved so much.
Absolutely. I think this deep dive is going to be a good one. We've got a lot to discuss.
Let's do it.
But, you know, it's interesting, though. The review does point out that the themes could feel a bit heavy-handed at times.
Yeah, that's always a challenge for filmmakers, right? Like, how do you balance entertainment with a message?
Seriously. It's like you want people to think, but you don't want to hit them over the head with it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like you want to spark a conversation, not a lecture.
Totally. It reminds me of when I saw City of God.
Oh, man, what a film.
So intense, right? But it also made you think about the cycle of violence and poverty.
Yeah, like it stayed with you long after the credits rolled.
And that's what makes a film truly great, in my opinion. When it can entertain you, but also make you question things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that extra layer that elevates it to art.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder if Monkey Man can achieve that same kind of impact.
Well, it sounds like Patel's aiming for it. But even if it doesn't quite reach those heights, the review still praises those action sequences.
True. Those are important, too. Gotta have some thrills in an action movie, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's about finding that balance.
All right, so after all this analysis, what's the final verdict?
Drum roll, please.
What score did the review give Monkey Man?
They landed on a 7.5 out of 10.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah, it seems fair. It acknowledges the film's ambition and its strengths, but also recognizes that it's not perfect.
Which is fine. No film is perfect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, a 7.5 still means it's worth watching.
Definitely. And you know what else caught my eye? The review ends with a question for the audience.
Ooh, I love when they do that. It's like they're inviting us to keep thinking about it.
Right. It asks, how do you think a film can balance intense action with meaningful commentary on societal issues?
Wow, that's a great question. It really challenges us to consider the role of film in society.
It does. And it makes me even more curious to see how Patel tackled this in Monkey Man.
Me too. You know, it's making me think, have you seen any other films that successfully pull off that balance?
You know, one that immediately comes to mind is Parasite.
Oh, Parasite. Brilliant film.
Right. It was like a thriller, a comedy, and social commentary all rolled into one.
And it worked perfectly. It was entertaining, thought-provoking, and just so well made.
Exactly. And that's what I'm hoping for with Monkey Man. It sounds like Patel has a lot to say, and I'm eager to see how he uses the medium of film to express it.
It's always fascinating to see how directors use the tools at their disposal.
Yeah.
The visuals, the sound, the editing, it all comes together to create a unique experience.
Yeah, and that's what makes these deep dives so fun. We get to dissect all those elements and appreciate the artistry behind it.
It's like we're getting a glimpse into the director's mind.
And even if you don't agree with the review or interpretation, it's still a valuable exercise.
Totally. It helps us become more critical thinkers and more engaged viewers.
So for anyone listening who loves action movies or is interested in Dev Patel's work or just appreciates a film that tries to say something meaningful, Monkey Man seems like a must-see.
And even if you don't end up loving the film, the experience of engaging with it on a deeper level, that's valuable in itself.
Absolutely. So what do you think? Are you intrigued?
Definitely. I'm adding Monkey Man to my watch list for sure.
Me too. I think this deep dive has given us a lot to consider.
It has. And it'll be interesting to see if the film lives up to the hype.
Only one way to find out.
Let's go watch it.
I mean, it's cool how one movie can get you thinking about so many things.
It is, huh? And this isn't just happening in some made-up world, you know?
What do you mean?
Well, the film is set in India.
Right.
A place that's really grappling with this tension between old and new.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like tradition versus progress.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder how that real-world context will play into the story.
Yeah, it's not just a random backdrop, right? The setting itself becomes part of the narrative.
And from what I'm gathering, Patel uses that to his advantage.
How so?
Well, he's not shying away from those contrasts, you know, like the wealth disparity, the clash of values.
Right, like it adds a layer of complexity.
It makes it feel more authentic, more grounded.
And within that setting, you've got the kid who's driven by this need for revenge.
But can violence ever truly bring justice? That's the question the film seems to be asking.
It's a classic question, right?
Okay.
But the Indian context might give it a new dimension.
Definitely. And I'm curious about how the kid, reconciles his desire for revenge with the spiritual side of Indian culture.
Oh, yeah. The review did mention that spirituality is a key theme.
So I wonder if there's this internal conflict, like between his thirst for vengeance and the idea of seeking a more peaceful path.
Maybe it's a struggle between his personal desires and the values he was raised with.
Right. It's like the film is using this personal story of revenge to explore a broader societal struggle.
That search for identity in a rapidly changing world.
Exactly. And that search might lead the kid to question everything he thought he knew.
Ooh, I like that. That adds a whole other layer to the movie.
It's like Patel is trying to make us think about these bigger questions,
Yeah, and it's making me rethink the whole action genre.
How so?
Well, it's not just about explosions and car chases anymore. It can be a way to explore these really complex issues.
Right, it's like we're seeing an evolution of the genre.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're not just talking about whether the movie is good or bad.
We're looking at how it uses the language of cinema to say something meaningful.
Exactly. We're analyzing the craft, the themes, the cultural context.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Or maybe more like a really delicious parfait.
Okay, maybe a parfait. But the point is, there's a lot to unpack here.
So to bring it back to that question, the review asked, how can a film balance intense action with meaningful commentary?
It seems like Monkey Man might offer one possible answer.
And it's an answer that's worth exploring.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And I hope it sparked some ideas for you listening as well.
We'd love to hear your take. What stood out to you about Monkey Man?
Do you think action movies can be more than just mindless entertainment?
Let us know your thoughts. And in the meantime, happy watching.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into something fascinating.
Until then, stay curious.